Yeah, sure, I get you. Yes, some 2 minutes.
Let's give Kev.
So, ladies and gentlemen, comrades at the Economics, just a quick check that there is no background noise coming from my end. Could Spencer confirm whether there is any background noise from my end?
There isn't any. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, we first and foremost, my name is KESA Simiyu, and it is my great pleasure to be part and parcel of this amazing career week, which is also the first of a kind that the Economic Students Association of KESA is convening. And it is particularly important that it has come at such a juncture when there is so much going on in terms of discourse within economics and its related disciplines. It is particularly important at this point that we are kickstarting the career week by first looking at research and academia. This one is important personally to me as an aspiring researcher and also as an inspiring academic. And it is also a chance for me to welcome each and every one of us on board, be it as lovers of research, enthusiasts, or just learners and young scholars. So on this particular occasion, we were privileged to have a panel of 4 speakers whose wealth of experience and expertise spans various dimensions and various aspects and walks of life. These panelists, some of them have been serving various capacities, both within the academy as well as in consultancies and think tanks and other research institutions. And one common denominator across the board is the word economist. Yeah, which we all appreciate that an economist matters because we do have an economy. So there could be no better way of justifying that. But we learn along the way, particularly from some of our mentors who will be in the panel. So at this particular juncture, allow me to briefly take us through the bio for our speakers and panelists today. So to begin with, we have Isaac Chibole, who is an economist, a youth development advocate, a business development professional, researcher, writer, and mentor with a strong interest in using economics, innovation, and strategic thinking to create opportunities for young people and drive sustainable development. He is a World Economic Forum Global Shaper with the Nairobi Hub and serves as an advisory board member at KESA Youth Community Kenya, contributing to youth empowerment and leadership initiatives. He also serves as Director of Economics and Innovation at the National Youth Caucus Kenya, where he focuses on advancing economic thinking, innovation, and youth-centered development. With extensive experience in research and consultancy, Isaac has developed expertise in economic analysis, research, strategic planning, writing, business development, and advisory work. His professional interests also extend to emerging technologies, including cryptocurrency, non-fungible tokens, and digital project development. Then the second one is Dr. Socrates Majune, who is an economist, academic, lecturer, researcher, and professional development advocate with a strong background in economic thought, institutional economics, finance, and consultancy. He is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, where I also do school. And there he teaches courses including history of economic thought and institutional economics. Prior to his current role, he served as a tutorial fellow at the same institution, where he built extensive experience in university teaching, academic mentorship, and student development. At the moment, he serves as the president-elect of the Africa Finance and Economic Association, AFEA, reflecting his leadership and contribution to the broader field of economics and finance. Through his role, he is positioned to contribute to the advancement of economic scholarship, professional networks, and engagement among economists across Africa and beyond. Beyond academia, Socrates has an interest in consultants and professional development, helping aspiring consultants understand how to enter and build careers in the consulting profession. His work combines academic expertise, research, economic analysis, teaching, leadership, and professional guidance. And just to mention, Dr. Socrates has been a recipient of various awards and recognition, including the Wallace Stiller Prize, as well as the year 2020 Trade Economist under the World Trade Organization. And finally, we have Professor Paul M. Gashancha, who is an associate professor of economics and registrar in charge of administration and finance at Kenyatta University. With over 2 decades of experience in academic leadership, economic research, institutional management, and mentorship. He has held senior leadership positions, including Dean of the School of Economics, Chair of the Department of Economic Theory, and Acting Deputy Vice Chancellor in charge of Administration and Finance. His expertise spans productivity and efficiency, economics, microeconomic theory, operations research, and public-private partnerships. Professor has contributed to major institutional and development initiatives, including the $52 million Kenyatta University Hostels public-private partnership project, and has consulted for organizations such as the African Economic Research Consortium and the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. He is passionate about academic excellence, economic research, and institutional transformation. Then we have Julian Etonam, who is a researcher and scholar from Benin. He has worked across different research environments, and at the moment is a young scholar under the African Economic Research Consortium, a doctoral scholarship, where he's also pursuing a PhD in Benin. So, ladies and gentlemen, as well as the entire KESA community, and those of us present, once more, I welcome you to this amazing event. We were also supposed to have Ms. Christine Kiecha from the American Institute of Research, where she serves as the Managing Director, Kenya office. However, we are not able to host her today, but we look forward to her joining us in future events. So at this particular juncture, let me just welcome our panelists. And let's do that with the round of applause via use of emojis. And as we do that, let me first welcome Dr. Socrates Majune to just greet us as we proceed. Karibu Daktari.
Okay, many thanks, Kefa. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, many thanks, Kefa. The president of KESA, Spencer, many thanks for the invitation. I am Socrates Majune. I lecture at the University of Nairobi, and I'm really looking forward to a very engaging conversation. Many thanks. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. So next, let me welcome Chibole to say hi.
Thank you very much, my colleague Kefa. Thanks to my colleagues at KESA. I really appreciate the invitation to spend this evening in, finding a way forward for each of us as economic students, because I believe once you begin the economic journey of learning, it never stops. And thank you very much for the good work that KESA is doing. You've affected my self-esteem by starting off with me and giving me a meaningful introduction. We never grow up in the eyes of our teachers. So when he introduced me in front of lecturers, I got a bit self-conscious, but I hope whatever insights we'll share will be relevant to us. For them, they are here to teach all of us. But for me, I'm here as a fellow to just share everything I know. Maybe we can correct each other. Maybe you can learn from it. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chibole. And finally, Julian, welcome. You could greet us before we proceed further. Okay, as we wait for Julian to pass his regards, let's first step in quickly to the discussion, then we'll come back to Julian Etonam. Yeah, then maybe just a few housekeeping rules. Yeah, we will be actively using the chat box or the Q and A segment of the
Sorry, Kefa, for
yeah,
cutting you short.
yes.
I think you missed Prof. Gashanja. He's in.
Oh yeah. Thank you for that insight. Yeah, so before finally opening the floor, let's welcome the Deputy Vice Chancellor from Kenyatta University. So welcome, Prof. You could say hi to us. I'm not sure whether Prof gets us. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. So good evening, Kefa. Thank you very much. And I'm very glad to join you tonight and looking forward to this forum and this session. And also trying to look forward to learning from the young ones. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. And once more, welcome on board.
Thank you.
Julian Etonam, are you in a position to say hi?
Yes, Kefa, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sure. I hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to all the organizers and KESA for inviting me. And I hope we have a very interesting exchange. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. So just by the way, Julian and I met at the American University in Cairo sometime in June. Yeah, where we were trying to better understand how research could be done differently in Africa, and particularly by it being led by young scholars on the continent. And having mentioned that, there is also something that you forgot by way of oversight, and which will take us directly to the first round of our discussion. And this is that sometime during COVID, Dr. Socrates Majune and his team worked on compiling a database for economic scholarship and economic authorship in Kenya, whereby they did some marvelous work trying to put together the kind of research that has been conducted by Kenyan scholars beginning the year, I think, 1962, all the way to around 2020. So building on that, as well as his role as the president-elect at the African Finance and Economic Association, we understand that many students think that research is simply about writing papers or fulfilling degree requirements, because when you look at, for instance, how research papers are written, particularly among students, we usually have it on the cover page as in partial fulfillment of requirements for the award of a certain qualification. So, Daktari, looking at this and your experience over time as an academic, what exactly does a research career truly involve?
Yeah, many thanks, Kefa, and once again to colleagues who are joining us. Glad to be here. So I'll answer the question in two ways. Number one, starting with an optimistic way. And this goes to colleagues, even if you are in third year, fourth year in undergrad, please don't take your research lightly. From experience, there's one student I supervised some years ago whose research project, that fourth year research project, is the one that opened her doors to go to Oxford. And she lately just tours the world courtesy of that fourth year research. And every time when I'm allocated students, I usually tell them, take this seriously. I've seen it changing someone's life, and that is it. So on to what you asked. Research is, I'll categorize it in two ways. Number one, you have to understand whether you're looking at academic research or you're looking at industry research. So for academic research, by that I mean, it will be school projects, it will be thesis or whatever level of study that you're doing. But then the main characteristics, or rather the main output someone is looking out to is, can I get a journal article out of this? In some cases, you're interested in getting policy briefs, but then most times you're interested in saying, can I get a article out of this? And that demands a high level of data analysis. You mostly be using a lot of academic jargon. That's what will actually be appearing. Again, academic research could be in line of writing consultancy proposals and also grants. So that's also another way of looking at it from academic research. So academicians, a lot of colleagues, lecturers are always writing grants, proposals here and there, mainly to get consultancy works. So at the end of the day, academic research really requires that you identify a niche. What exactly do you want to focus on? And that's the area you really want to write on. So on the other side, the industry research is very diverse. It could be that industry research, but then in an international organization. Economists, we look forward to working at places such as the World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank. So that's what I mean by industry. So it could be such international organizations or even the World Trade Organization where I was some time back. It could also be research institutions, for instance, KIPRA for us economists. It could also be in government. So government also has research, but then it's a bit different. And then lastly, it could also be in the private sector. I see a lot of banks calling for financial economists to do research specifically for that. Maybe you're interested in market research, you'll work in a market research firm, and the research will be different. So that I don't take a lot of time, I just give a brief characteristic of how they are different from academic research. So for instance, in international organizations, you might need a proper understanding of data analysis, but then it takes a lot of your report writing skills. So your research will mostly be writing reports and also coming with briefs, because the clients are people who just want something that is in a very simple language. So for research institutions such as KIPRA, a lot of colleagues are required to do more of what we do in academia again, journal articles, policy briefs. So it demands a lot of also academic rigor. Is that the language of how you write it is a bit friendly, let me say so. For government, of course, you mainly be working on reports and policy briefs, depending on where you are. Maybe it's a Kenya Revenue Authority or National Treasury. Your main client will actually be the government and senior levels of management. So you mostly be writing reports and policy briefs. And then lastly, we have the private sector. Depending on that, you mostly be client driven, and that might require just, in some cases, even just very basic statistics. But in a nutshell, to conduct the research, you have to understand, are you looking at it academic research or you are looking at industry? Back to you, Kefa.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. And that takes us right to Prof. We understand that sometime in the year 2018, students within your School of Economics, they initiated the first ever economic symposium whereby students will come and pitch ideas. Thereafter, some of them will proceed into an incubation hub and so forth and so on. At the same time, there has been the emergence of artificial intelligence, which basically seems to be disrupting the order of things. So, Prof, looking at your own experience, particularly working within an institution that not only pioneers research, but also nurtures researchers, how would you define the new cohort of scholars and their contributions to the evolving research landscape?
Thank you, Kefa. I want to begin by, of course, saying that research is very, very basic and begins at very early stages. I know we formally define scholars, especially after the first degree when they get into their master's programs. But then we train our students, basically even from the undergraduate level, to think critically and to make decisions that are informed by evidence. And that's basically where our symposiums come from, where we ask students to go to the industry, get the real case of a company and so on, analyze that company, look at the business model. We even bring it to the basic level where we ask them, if you want to start a business, because majority of them are also in business, how did you make a decision to be in that business? You must have inquired, you must have done some, they may not naturally call it a research, but that's basically research. You are thinking critically so that when you make a decision, it is informed by some evidence. That's basically what research is all about. And that is actually what our symposium teaches. It is one of the initiatives we have for our undergraduate students, because the forum may not be that elaborate to have them do very, very serious and intensive academic research. But we train them from that level. And I would want to say that the present scholars are very, very fortunate, I would say so, because of emergence of the AI, as you have actually put it. Because what we are training our students, first of all, is to appreciate AI, because it is supposed to be an enabler, but not a replacement or a substitution for the originality of ideas. So you have the original ideas of what you want to do, but you use AI as an enabler to make your work a little bit easier. So we look at a generation that is coming at a time when we have that kind of technology, where some of us probably, when we were doing that research those days, of course, there was no benefit of AI. And also, of course, we are guiding. I'm sure there are so many challenges about AI and so many theories about AI, but we have made our students understand that AI is very positive. It is an enabler in what they want to do. And we also, in fact, we have institutionalized the fact that even the TAN 18 has now a module that actually gives a threshold of what content should actually be a reasonable AI generation. But the idea is emphasizing that AI is very useful because it makes work easier than where we are coming from. And again, in the current era, we have a lot of, when we are doing research, data used to be very rare and very difficult to come by. And sometimes you have really to go and generate a lot of data, use primary data. But now we are even in an era when data is very well preserved, kept, is easily available. You have technologies. We're also living in an era where even the tools of economic analysis are very current. And actually, we have platforms where we have, you can easily go to YouTube and get tutorials on how to get the most current methods of data analysis without even anybody teaching you. Those things never existed before, but the current scholar is endowed scholar, is well facilitated, and with guidance, we expect the scholars of the day to be the best scholars that we can have, because it's much easier to do research, data is available, and the knowledge is all over. And when the students are very keen, then AI should be used actually today to support that research and make them the best of researchers of our times. So that's basically what I can say, Kefa.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. So before we move to the next, could Dr. Socrates just chime in a little bit on the question of AI and how you think it is going to redefine how we do everything, particularly as students and young researchers?
Yeah, thanks, Kefa. AI, of course, is here to be with us and it's not going anywhere. So make my answers within the with the understanding that it's a reality that we have it. So I'll give you, my answer will be based on how I personally use AI. Number one, I don't think it is really ethical to use it entirely to write a work, your research work, where you have totally not read the papers, you've not conducted the literature review and everything. But then if the idea is to use it to easily identify suitable papers, well and good. More so, where I see it helping a lot of our students in economics, and what has bridged, for instance, the shortcomings I used to have a few years ago and what I have right now is in data analysis. In the past, you will spend hours just trying to get a certain code for starter or whatever software you're using on Google. Nowadays, with AI, you can even just load in your data and tell it, I want ABCD. This is a model, and it actually produces everything. That way, it makes your life easier, more efficient. And so I'm thinking in terms of data analysis. Also, sometimes there's no harm in asking it to critique your work. Just ask it, assume you are a reviewer somewhere, what are some of the comments you'll actually have on this one? Most likely it will also come into you. So I think the only problem I have with it is where you entirely do not do anything as a human being, looking for literature or reading the works, and then you rely on AI to actually write. But if it's a matter of idea and data analysis, I have no problem. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. So basically, tying the 2 points from Dr. Socrates and Prof, we noticed that it appears that evidence is key. And now looking at the African Economic Research Consortium, one of its mission is on how to bring rigorous evidence that could inform policy and decision making in Africa and help governments within the region to better deliver services to the people. So Julian, looking at your own experiences and as a mentee under the African Economic Research Consortium, what exactly could you pinpoint to be quite exciting about research and where you see it being headed?
Okay, thank you, Kefa. As researcher, I will say, from my point of view, the research environment today in Africa can be described as one of significant transformation, but also one that continues to face important structural challenges. On the one hand, we can see the steady growth of research production across the continent, thanks maybe to AI as well. Also, the emergence of research centers such as AIR and increasing collaboration among researchers, universities, research institutions, etc. So a lot of institutions today in Africa are doing a great job in terms of doing research. But at the same time, we must recognize that a significant challenge remains within the research environment. These challenges are related to funding. Funding is limited and in many cases heavily dependent on external sources. We therefore need to think or rethink the way our program should survive in Africa. So today the challenge is not simply to increase the volume of research publication, but to strengthen sustainable and locally anchored research ecosystem that are able to generate, retain, and use knowledge effectively. To conclude, I would say I'm really optimistic about the future of research in Africa. But I believe that this optimism must be matched by greater investment in research capacity, institution infrastructure funding, and building capacity of young researchers and earlier career researchers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. So basically, the idea one is that opportunities exist, and two, what is more needed now than ever before is the question of how do we raise capacity. At the Economic Students Association of Kenya, there has been two events which have been convened in collaboration with the Economic Scholar Panel. And one of these events has been the Collaborative Writing Symposium. The other one has been the Tech Wrangle, which majorly focuses on how best to harness talent among young scholars and learners so that together we can inform policy via evidence. So looking at that, we understand that sometimes it is quite difficult to inform policy when we do not know the kind of skills that are needed. And that's precisely what Hilary Kerr from Maseno University is pointing out, and would love it when Professor Gashanja chips in to clearly highlight some of the research skills that Hilary and others could make a priority so that they position themselves adequately for global opportunities. Yeah, welcome, Prof.
Thank you, Kefa. Again, I mentioned earlier, and you rightly said that one of the platforms we offer our students and our young learners is that platform where they can practice, first of all, appreciate research. And as I earlier indicated, research is basically an inquiry where you desire that any decision that you make is informed by some evidence, some sort of evidence, and that evidence is not just obvious. You look for it. So that's basically where the research skills begin. And I think it is that inquisitive mind that we always try to introduce to our students. A research culture is developed and is actually developed through mentorship. And that is basically what we emphasize. And that is the reason why we have the students, the kind of symposiums that we have. We are also encouraging academic members of staff when we do research, either funded research or not, engaging our students in either data correction, developing tools, just developing that interest in them. And as I said, an interested student, when you develop the desire, to do research, to inquire, to find out, then you also definitely have to know that the tools are the soft skills of actually getting that self-initiative of using, learning a little bit more about, because right now nobody really has time to teach you on the tools, for example, the softwares to use in research, in data analysis. Those things are already available. And you see, when you develop a research culture, those other things come now as from your interest. When you develop interest in research, and you also get mentorship, you are carried along by your lecturers and other senior colleagues, you actually develop that interest. So what we really ask for, first of all, is that inquisitive mind in class, that it is not just another academic exercise. And that is why we give group, even our approach of teaching is why you want students to be inquisitive. So that is what we do. Not everybody definitely becomes a researcher, because actual research is a career. And somebody decides to pursue a career at some level in life. So there are others who feel they are not interested. They are not inquisitive. They are not actually interested. Even learning new skills of data analysis, new softwares available, that are softer skills we are asking students to learn. And as I said, because of the age we are living in, those things are already available in YouTube. You can even learn by yourself. But I think what we basically require is that interest, in a student. And that interest is basically developed, as I said, through mentorship, allowing students into the space of research, in the space of inquiry, So basically, research becoming a career begins with somebody. Are you interested? Because the career is not an academic exercise. I'm sure that we are going to get into deeper into that. It is not an academic exercise. It is something that you must be interested in. It is something that you must be ready to earn a living out of, but definitely driven by your interests to inquire, because academics principally becomes to shape how the ideas are organized in a flowing manner and so on. But the idea of research is basically somebody's decision and developing interest. And what we do, because research is not something which is known long before. In high school, nobody talks about research. You only start hearing it about research in the university. So what we do is basically more of mentorship, allowing students also to get involved in what their senior or their lecturers are doing. And not only that, doing those kind of symposiums with guidance by the lecturers and so on. So that interest is basically what I would ask that student who asked to develop that interest, to participate, in those kind of symposiums. And that is why you develop an interest. And when you are interested, then you're able to inquire more, and actually you get more detailed in terms of learning even new skills of doing research and even doing data analysis. And it becomes very interesting when you have the interest.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. So one of the central ideas that have been shared over time has been a quote from Abhijit Banerjee, who was the Economics Nobel laureate in the year 2019, together with his spouse Esther Duflo and Michael Kremer. And his idea has been that one generation builds on and benefits from the works of others, which essentially suggests that mentorship and leadership go hand in hand. And for them to have that synergy, there has to be a kind of collaboration. So, Isaac Chibole, looking at your own experience, both at Kektil, Kenya, and in various other capacities that you have been, including the World Economic Forum Shaper for Kenya, what could you say qualifies one to be an effective researcher?
Thank you very much, Kefa. I should have sent you an email earlier to request simpler questions. Now we are in front of lecturers. They might enroll me in a mandatory program next week. But I think those questions have been answered. I'd just like to deliver my answer through an analogy that we can understand better. So allow me just to share my screen very quickly. I'll be brief.
Yeah, sure.
Don't tense.
Yeah.
So are you guys able to see any movement on my screen?
Yes.
Just let me know once. So yeah, I just want to quickly base my answers on what Professor Gashanja and Majune have earlier talked about. So this is a screenshot of some interaction I had with the AI today. I was doing some research into policy harmonization of a certain subsector in energy, and it's focused on West Africa. So there was a material, a specific national strategy I was trying to access on the internet, but I couldn't get a link. You see how nowadays there's that direct link that just you click it and it downloads the document and your Adobe Acrobat opens it automatically. So I couldn't get that. So I decided, okay, my friend AI, where are you? Let me see what you can give me. So that's not the first question. The first question, or rather the first response to the question I asked was this. So it told me that Sierra Leone and Cote d'Ivoire do not have these specific or dedicated national strategies for the subsector. But it just so happened that I was part of the team that supported development of one of those countries' national strategies. So I was telling it, my friend, you're not serious. Sierra Leone has that strategy. What are you talking about? So this was the response. You can see, correcting the regional landscape. Now put yourself in my shoes. Assume either of our professors here today had given you an assignment to do a regional study, and you had decided that AI will answer it all. So the word is regional. So if you're making a mistake, you are making a mistake across all the ECOWAS countries, the 13 countries or so. So it then admits that these two countries actually now lead with dedicated strategies.
Power.
And then it defends itself in saying the gaps in standalone policies are narrower but still exist in nations like Liberia and Guinea-Bissau. Then it says, of course, thank you again for ensuring the record is straight. Then given your first-hand experience, I would love to know what was the most significant. So I didn't answer, of course, I didn't answer its question. But now you can imagine if it's asking me what the most significant institutional barrier is, and someone somewhere has been assigned the task to research that, and they will take the answer it will give them word for word at that section when it asked me that question. So I believe that I trained it enough to be, as Professor Gashanja said, rigorous. So I then asked it another question because I told it, now tell me the West African countries that don't have this dedicated strategy. And it mentioned Niger. So I decided, okay, I don't know too much about Niger. Let me look into it. I just asked it, are you sure? Then he said, you caught another mistake. And I'm not this word. And I'm very glad you pushed back on this. Very glad you pushed back. You should associate that term with rigor, right? Prof has just said that evidence is not there. We go look for it, right? So here, by looking for it, is this pushback. By the behavioral component that our lecturers have mentioned, notice that behavioral component that informs how effective you are able to be as a researcher. By that behavioral component, you will want to see, okay, you've listed these are the national strategies in these ECOWAS countries. Let me go see them and read them, right? Let me go see and read, because at the same time you're gathering knowledge, even as you're researching, whether it's as a commercial activity for your earning or whatever it is, you're also learning. The moment you go search, you'll find that it isn't there. So those are the anecdotes or analogies I wanted to use. So I'd prepared this short thing. So I'll just quickly wrap up the response with this first section of the roadmap I believe young economists and students should use, especially when trying to find clarity on your career pathways. First, always test your hypothesis. Is it null or is it positive? You guys who are currently studying might know more than that. Know more than me in that. Both you guys who are studying and the lecturers. Me, I'm a bit, I've forgotten the formula. But the example here is the hidden momentum of population growth. I believe we've come across this. I think I learned that in development economics or something. So the way the hidden momentum of population growth works is that there happens to be, say, regular rate of population growth. Then there might be a surge sometime. But then due to developmental trajectories, you might decide that people are reducing the number of people or individuals in their families so as to control population growth. But because of that surge at a point in time, there will be still that acceleration until it tapers off, right? So for somebody who hasn't looked into it and really interrogated the phenomenon, they'll be convinced that once we decide to implement a one-child policy, we will slow down our population, as an example, by 2030. And that by that 2030, we want to reduce the strain on resources so that we have, say, resources to commit to this other activity. But that 2030 might reach and they might realize the population has not slowed down enough to free resources to commit to that other project. Why? Because they took it at face value. They didn't interrogate it. In my work in energy consulting, an example would be if I'm trying to reduce the number of deaths from the use of polluting cooking fuels in rural areas and also urban areas, that the lower economic strata in urban areas, I might say that using logic, unaona vile watoto wa shule wanasema hiyo uta reason tu, si lazima nisome, utatumia tu akili. So hiyo akili utatumia, you might say that I just need to find suppliers of clean cooking technologies to bring into country X so as to solve this issue of lack of clean cooking access. But then maybe the main problem that is visible is that at the ports, they do not have a standards bureau to check through devices. And they might not have that, but they might be diligent as a country such that they do not let in substandard products or standards they don't have capacity to test. So what then will you do? You'll recommend as a consultant, let's establish a bureau of standards, put it at the port, and then enable suppliers to bring in the clean cooking technologies, only to realize once you bring the goods to market that the problem was not that alone. In this market, when you segment it, there are different cadres of people. There are those who are able and willing to buy. You know that about demand. But then there are those who are willing, but they are not able. And then there are certain markets that just don't have the structures for you to deliver them there. What have you done? You've run into a problem. So my entire point there is the diligence, and just to reinforce that AI is only intelligent to an intelligent person. The moment you are clueless, AI will impress you, but it will lead you into problems. So make sure you have the knowledge, make sure you have the base understanding, the attitude, the behavioral requirement, and it will be useful to you. So you can plant that answer to the question you asked, Kefa. I forgot the
Yeah, thank you, Isaac. So basically, most of the AI platforms are always carrying a disclaimer that the buck stops with you, who is asking me. That AI is not human, it can always make mistakes. So be sure to check. And that now takes us to another pressing issue. Yeah, the question of power and how it is affecting sovereignty, particularly of individuals, basically sovereignty of thought, independence of ideas, and the whole question about energy governance. We understand at some point, Meta, the current organization that harmonizes Facebook together with some other institutions, was planning to set up its data center here in Kenya. And one of the challenges that were raised was around the issue of energy supply. So looking at this issue, maybe Prof, you could just help us to understand a little bit better how we can enable students now to develop research around such topics that seem to be quite relevant, but equally difficult. The question of how can we leverage our energy supplies to meet the needs of these technologies without really diverting resources away from other needs, such as from household consumption and from farms.
Okay, Kev, I don't know. I'm not sure I understood that, but let me give it a shot. The issue of power and how we can, I thought you're talking about how we can drive students to do research into relevant areas that are beneficial and have impact on the society. You're bringing power is the power sector as one of those areas.
Yes.
And I would point out this way that of course students, I said mentorship is very, very key in research. As I said, maybe some of us learned it the hard way, where you really had very little mentorship in terms of what research is all about, but maybe that hard way has helped us explore by ourselves, and we are able now to, we learned the ropes and we are able now to guide others. But I would want to say that the issue of identifying areas that have impact to the society, and those areas that are relevant have two dimensions to it. One, of course, is the issue of mentorship, as I said, because the senior scholars, the lecturers, and talk about us as economists. It is us basically who probably have that level of understanding of what issues there are in the society to look at. And initially we had a very narrow landscape of what issues we could have tackled, because that was purely academic, and you are trying to limit yourself to issues of the factors that influence this and that, inflation, those topical issues in economics. But I think time has come when we are saying that because of the situations and the problems we have in the society and the emergence of technologies that are able to help you actually even read and find out more of what others are doing, there should be that leadership by the scholars in terms of directing students into areas and involving students in areas they are doing research in the most relevant sectors in the economy. And that actually drives me to say that our research topics or our areas that we intend to do research on must not be informed academically, but basically should be informed. We are encouraging a lot of multidisciplinary research where you bring in industry so that whatever you're trying to do in research is basically trying to answer a certain aspect or a certain challenge that the society is having. So multidisciplinary researches are basically having people in all aspects looking at problems from all their dimensions and bringing relevance in the sense that you have a marriage between the academia and industry, where you're able to pick very relevant issues that you can delve into. And that even makes it easier because even that private sector of the industry is willing even to fund some of those things because they feel the output of that inquiry is basically going to be of use to them. And therefore, by so doing and engaging our students into these relevant areas, then the students, of course, get involved. So basically, they need that leadership. But also, even when we do cases studies in class, you also direct them not just choosing any case study, but you can deliberately guide and lead. And we have really benefited from those kind of assignments by students, where you give them an area you are interested in, because again, research is about interest, because you cannot be a researcher in everything. You choose a niche area that you do research, and in that niche area you bring in a group of students to help you, give them an inquiry in this area, give them an inquiry in this area, and you enrich that research, but at the same time benefiting the students because they're able to be involved. And so the issue of relevance and actually trying to address the issues that benefit the society and are of concern to the society is basically through leadership by those who are leading in scholarly work or those who are leading in research and guiding our students very, very carefully. Coming to the energy sector, we know, of course, when you mention energy directly or when you specify the energy sector, we have in economics, we have disciplines, we have energy economics. So we have researchers, of course, who are also interested in energy, and they delve so much into that, and they're able even to find partnerships in that area. So by researchers taking that lead and that deliberate lead into areas that benefit the society, those niche areas, students are also able to form their ideas very early and get interest that I may also be interested in this, because research becomes perfect when you focus, when you actually become specialized. So when you focus on a certain area, and we are not a jack of all trade. So by so doing, when you have scholars getting their niches in energy, in water, in other resources, or in any other discipline that is relevant, then by that leadership, by scholars and the senior scholars that we have, then there is that following, and you're able to have disciples that can actually delve into that. And when you have those kind of networks, and you also bring the industry where you are dealing on more, that brings a lot of quality in research, not only for academia and for learning purposes, but also to to answer the societal needs. So basically, I would say that it's not the students identifying the niches and the needs out of in the society. It is more of leadership. It is more of mentorship that we are waiting to do, and I'm sure it's happening for young scholars, and also encouraging scholars also and researchers to have a multidisciplinary approach to research, because problems should be looked at from our aspects of life. And the student involved in that kind of work learns a lot and is able to even to shape up his mind and discipline to know that basically this is what I would pursue, and this is what I'm interested in, this area of research, I'm not interested in this other one. And so that is why in every, especially in economics, when you do a research or you as you advance further into your master's, into your PhD and professorship, you narrow down into a certain area where you can profess a lot of knowledge and become innovative in that area. So basically that's how I would want to approach it.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. And that has adequately answered a query made by Naomi Makovo from Liberty Sparks Africa. And now we move to the next juncture, but before we do that, let's take note that at 9:22 p.m., the floor will be opened for question and answers, if there are any that will be burning at that particular point in time, which cannot be accommodated via the chat section. So there is an anecdote which was shared by Batil Oilin, who was once a Nobel economic laureate, for his work that basically touched the question of unemployment and interest rates, which was a work paralleling that of John Maynard Keynes. So Oilin shared that when he had completed working on his treatise, he shared it with Professor Edgeworth of the Edgeworth box, who was supposed to share with Keynes for some comments. Then, fortunately, Keynes returned the manuscript with a single sentence, which read, this work amounts to nothing and should be refused, rejected, and declined. So looking at that particular issue, whereby it appears that more often than not, economics and many other fields are actually marred by politics. So we would love to hear from our panelists how basically whether they have experienced some of these challenges, like maybe you feel you're actually hitting some kind of rock bottom or not. And if it happened that you once hit a kind of a rock bottom, what did you do about it? And also drawing from another experience that we evidenced last year when the African Finance and Economic Association hosted the Econ Trivia at the University of Nairobi, and KESA happened to have a representation together with some students from the University of Nairobi. We noticed that at some point in time, some of the questions appear to be a kind of out of the blues. So maybe starting with you, Daktari, thinking back to your own journey, what would you say were the biggest challenges you faced entering academia, and what lessons have you drawn from those particular challenges that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, many thanks, Kefa. And what you're actually asking is quite reality, especially for those of us who like to join academia. I'll dwell more in terms of, I'm usually very optimistic, so I'll dwell more in terms of what I think I saw and then how I overcame it. Number one, the biggest challenge I saw entering academia the first time was what Prof is trying to say. Yes, you have an interest in something, you have identified an interest, but then sometimes you realize you have a deficiency in certain skill sets. For instance, I'll give you an example. My master's project entailed doing some survival analysis. So I could write, I could read, write, and everything, but then I only realized I was in deep soup, hot soup, or in a lot of trouble when I came to the level of data analysis. And I remember now reaching out to a lot of people who even teach this. those who even teach the subject at the School of Mathematics. But then one most important thing you guys need to remember is there's always a solution somewhere outside here. As Prof has said, mentorship. So I remember Googling, identifying people who had used the same model a lot and who are experts. I remember actually writing an email to them, requesting them, here, I'm actually stuck at this place. Would you mind sharing your data? Do file for just purposes of practice. I was lucky enough to have two of them. Two major people who are widely cited on that area share their do files and the data. And one of them actually has turned out into a personal friend. He's Turkish. We recently just met at a conference somewhere. So don't fear approaching people. Not everyone will, of course, respond, but there are high chances not everyone will actually ignore you. So number one thing I'm saying is, in that case, my deficiency was on the analysis side. So working with this professor has improved that aspect of analysis and data analysis. How do you think as an analyst? Because there's a skill set that you need to have. The other biggest challenge has always been finance. It's quite common, you go to conferences, you meet with colleagues who are from universities where money is not a problem. All that person needs is to tell the university, my paper has been accepted here, and they'll be funded. Yet conferences are quite important. So how I went, I approached that is, number one, please don't wait for a conference to be announced for you to start writing a paper. By right now, you should be thinking of a certain paper targeting certain conferences for next year. So there are high chances that the longer you work on something, it will actually become better. So by the time you actually submit, you are submitting very quality work. And in this case, collaborate with people and everything, but then don't wait for an announcement for you to actually start writing, because the world is very competitive. The only advantage you have is that you are young and you're African. Chances of you being funded are usually high, especially if the work is good. And that's how I managed to come get about this. Nonetheless, when you go to some of these spaces, just trust your instincts. I remember what a conference that changed a lot of how I view research was by the Economic Society in Rabat in 2019. So one of those conferences, I sat there and asked myself whether I was really a PhD student or I really questioned whether really. But the only thing I remember telling myself is, you are young, you are here to learn. And number two, you are competing against colleagues who have a lot of mentors. Some you are in a university which has Nobel Prize laureates. Me, I'm just there self-driven to come there. But then you don't leave it at that place. You don't pity yourself. One of the reasons why you are at that conference is to network. It is through that conference that I've managed to get two co-authors who have actually co-authored a lot of papers together. So network, please. There are a lot of solutions from colleagues who are there. You have someone from a way better university than you, way better researcher. Their finances for them are not a problem. Try and see how to network with that person. So, but then lastly, as I conclude, so those are some of the challenges that you face as realities, and then how do you go about them? The other thing is about identifying an area of specialization. The thing that Professor said, all of us cannot love everything about economics. So for instance, for me, based on childhood, I grew up at the border of Kenya and Uganda. I saw firsthand how we used to wake up in the morning, go and pick coffee, sell it over the border, or if it's maize or everything. With that, I've developed interest in international trade because that's where we used to get money to pay fees and everything. So the idea is that kind of interest, and then now you delve yourself into a lot of research for that area. Nowadays, I think AI, some people are more interested in the environment, but then number one, you need to actually have an interest. If you don't have an interest, then it becomes extremely tricky. To say you're just a general economist, it becomes extremely hard. I think the other thing then is about the lab for research. That one has to come without saying. But then lastly, you need shock absorbers. Just know that academia is not for faint-hearted people. You will send your works, even those ones that you think are quite good for journals, similar to Batilo Lin, as you've said. You'll send your works, by the way, send to journals, you get regret, send somewhere, you get regret. But then the idea is you don't give up. The thing you need to ask yourself is that if, for instance, you've sent your work to 5 journals and all of them have rejected, it can't be that 5 different people have just a personal vendetta against you. It's upon you to now ask yourself, what is it that this information is telling me? And that's where you see, okay, if you benchmark against papers which have been written in that area, what are they doing? If you don't have the capability of producing that, is when now you now collaborate with someone who you think is likely to assist on that aspect. Back to you, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. That reminds us of an article which was published by, I think it must have been the Journal of Economic Perspectives. I think its title was How Giants Fell, and one of the stories was that of George Akerlof's Market for Lemons, whereby when he first submitted to a journal, it was disrejected forthright, but later on it got accepted, and in the year 2001, he was awarded the Economics Nobel Prize for that same work, which had initially been rejected. And also on the issue of networking, that reminds us of the late Peter Doyle, with whom we met at the International Economic Association World Congress. And later on, he volunteered to actually mentor some of us at KESA and at the Economic Scholar Panel, which led to the establishment of a macro study group in the year 2024 to 2025. And later on, it culminated into the research wing at KESA. So basically, we could say it is more about networking as well as building and growing on the shoulders of giants. And now looking at that, Prof.
Maybe just a bit, Kefa.
Yes.
It's not just general networking. You need to know what would you like to gain from the network. As I've said, identify the deficiency you think you have.
Yes.
And then collaborate with someone so that you learn from them as you also strengthen your weaknesses.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Yeah. So now when looking at that issue of networking together with learning from those who have already gone through the process, maybe Prof, you could help us to understand best how we can navigate this issue, considering that research itself is consuming both in terms of time, financial resources, and other kinds of resources. So what exactly can students do to take advantage of the research environment available to them? Particularly, how best can they leverage networking possibilities so that they can move ahead?
Okay, thank you, Kefa. As I said, there are 2 ways in which you can look at research. There is research which is purely academic, and usually that kind of research is for people who probably are looking for some paper to achieve some other purpose or some other objective. Maybe you are looking for a promotion, you want to do a master's, and it's compulsory that you must do a project. No, that is purely academic, and it does not bring out any groundbreaking research. But when you develop research or interest and you make it a career, and especially scholarly work, when you get, especially when you pursue academics, you do your master's, you get your PhD level, and you move on, then in principle, you are making research part of your life. And I think one thing that we have to desire, of course, is to bring up others. As I said, we had a lot of challenges. Dr. is putting it here. We had a lot of challenges, of course, having people to hold our hands and move on, and getting a lot of discouragements. You asked, you mentioned something to do with hitting rock bottom. When you have this, in trying to grow yourself as a researcher, but you meet people along the way who are not interested to support you, who are not, who actually even want to push you down and put you down. That has been happening for very many years. Probably it is the environment is changing, but that has happened. And but I'm a believer in a positive aspect of economics where everybody is entitled to their own opinions. You may produce some work and somebody rubbishes it. Well, that you also take that to be his or her own opinion. Some of them is deliberate, but some basically you should listen to because it is basically constructive. And again, uh, one when there is that mentorship and especially that multidisciplinary research that is not meant for any academic work, there are a lot of funds. There's a lot of money out there, and there are very many people, donors, who are willing to fund groundbreaking researches that are supposed to inform policy, not only in Kenya, but even beyond. And such calls of papers are there. And when scholars come together and put put a proposal together to do that kind of a research, uh, what we have emphasized, and as when I talk about mentorship, because it is a key word, I'll keep underlining that because research needs somebody to hold your hand. Those who are ahead of you need somebody, those who are younger need people who are experienced in research to hold their hands and walk them the journey. Because one thing you also realize in research and even grant finding is that names, the name and your qualification are very key. There are people just by their name appearing in a proposal, you get funding. Or there are some fathers where if there is no title behind your name, nobody gives you finances. So that kind of, when you have those kind of people who have those kind of titles or that kind of privilege, now have holding the hands of younger researchers, because research is always sweet, and this is my experience. Research is always sweet when you bring others on board, when you train others, because as you develop and you become senior and more senior, you cannot do the groundwork, you cannot do even write the proposal, you cannot even do that, of course, even data analysis and data correction. So you need a team around you, and that is a kind of an effort that helps you develop, bring up very young scholars, and they become very prominent. And as they do that, they also push you up because you are publishing together. And the beauty again about publishing, as you bring other scholars up, is that you publish and you want to go out to publish because unachomwa by the output that you have received from research that you want others to know about. That is basically why you actually look for journals, high impact journals that may even take 2 years to publish your work, but you are not faint hearted. As Dr. is saying, academia is not for the faint hearted. But I think what I would say is this: our students and our young scholars may not grow up in research unless us who are who are senior and who are already in research hold their hands, because research is about a journey, and that journey must have somebody to hold your hand. So I think what then we would want, and as Daktari has put it, is interest. When we expose the students to do some of the things we do in class during the semester, the assignments we give, that is basically when we identify people or some of your students who are keen and who are basically interested. Because of when you read their work, even if they do it in groups, when you read the outcome and what they are presenting as projects, you're able to tell students who are serious and who may actually build a career in research. And as I say, the best thing, of course, is to give those exposures, do more of those symposiums, give them a platform. I'm talking about now at the graduate students, give them that platform to develop, so that when you pick on them, even encourage them to go to postgraduate level and even going beyond. That requires a lot of support, a lot of exposure, and that exposure can only come through the other scholars. So I think it is basically identifying them that are interested, because we say not everybody can be in research. Really, I mean the serious research at the master's level and going forward, not everybody can be there. But when we identify those that can, and they develop that interest, and they now get into the environment or the world of research and the world of researchers, there is a lot of growth and a lot of mentorship that develops their skills, so that as you grow up, when you are a senior researcher, you have a big base of many other young scholars you are bringing up. So I would encourage the young scholars to first of all look upon us, desire, develop that interest, have an inquisitive mind when you're given work. Don't go to AI and as my colleague is putting it here, you should be ahead of AI. In other words, it's you to guide AI, and you see what the example we are being given here is that it will give you some funny story, and then when you ask us to clarify, to even apologize, and then it didn't mean that. So the issue is basically having that interest, having our young scholars at a graduate level. When you're given these assignments, take them seriously, because we are looking to develop skills in you, especially, and pick a few or those who are keen in doing research, and also, of course, the scholars, researchers may not be here, but basically, we encourage a lot of that. Whenever we do donor funds, projects, we write proposals for funding. We ensure that one of the outputs out of that research is to develop a few master's students and develop a few PhD students. So, in other words, you incorporate students in this kind of research and publish together, and that builds a very big network. And when you get that kind of a network, we are saying that network becomes your net worth. Finally, let me put this point clear. You mentioned about sometimes you get very frustrated. And I think the reason why sometimes in the past, researchers like us, when we were young, we got those kind of frustrations is because we didn't have a lot of exposure. I remember when I was doing my PhD, I really suffered because maybe I was doing the area of productivity and efficiency. And during my time, I didn't even have, there was only one PhD holder in my department who was not even in that area. So I had to really look for scholars out there. But luckily, I got a scholarship. I went to the University of Bonn in Germany. And there I was able to be connected to actually a writer of one of the books I was using as a model. That is Timothy Coeli, when I was doing productivity and efficiency. And I had to meet him physically. We met physically. You can imagine the writer of the book is now with you and trying to help you understand, crack those models and those kind of things. That basically has been lacking in the past. But now, I don't think we have a shortage of that even in our own country, in our own universities. And I think mentorship is the key thing that I would say. Let the young scholars still show that interest and hang on the senior scholars and get to learn and not get discouraged. Sometimes discouragements will come. You get statements that tell you that what you are saying is zero, but push on because in a matter of time you grow up and also become a seasoned researcher. KEFA.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Yeah, and one quick request is that we will extend the session by 6 minutes so that we conclude at 9:36 and not at 9:30. And at this particular moment, I do not see any hand raised in the chat section. I also do not see any question. So maybe let me quickly rush to another anecdote before calling upon Julian and Chibole to chip in. And this one goes to the Lorraine. Okay. Yeah. And this one came from the medicine laureate some time back who had been studying about parasites as well as about how the human mind works. So when he was asked that now, how much do we know about how the mind works? The good prof indicated that for sure we do not know, that even he himself has no idea how it works. Then the other one comes from a physics laureate, that was Richard Feynman, who had published a book. Then a student used that particular book to do one assignment, then the student failed. So he wrote to Richard informing him that I simply followed your procedures and everything, but my prof said that I'm wrong. Then Richard informed the student that actually your prof is right. So what you have to do is you find some time, then we can come and crack that problem together. So now looking at that, we understand Saul had his own Damascus moment whereby he saw the light and was transformed. Research itself, also at some point we realized that it is quite demanding. So Julian, could you maybe share with us a point in time where now you decided that you want to focus on economics, that you want to do research within economics, and also whether you had a mentor or if you have identified one alongside some of the opportunities that have significantly shaped who you are as a young researcher and scholar.
Thank you, Kefa. If I had a specific time or a moment where I decided to become a researcher or economics, I cannot clearly answer this question because it's very difficult. Sometimes you are looking for something, but you just end up with something else. So becoming researcher, I would not say that this is the first things I was thinking of when I was young, when I was in college. But it's because of some opportunities and some circumstances. Now, related to the opportunities, I would say opportunities really exist, as you said already. But looking back today, I will not necessarily identify one single defining time or opportunities that make me enter or decided to become a researcher. But if I can maybe give some advices, I will tell to the student, the undergraduates, that they should just take their coursework really seriously. They should take their course really seriously, participate to research projects, seminar, because when you see some seniors doing certain kind of things, you will maybe say, I want to become like this, I want to become like a Professor Paul, for example, because you saw Professor Paul doing such kind of things. And the second thing, they should try to apply for multiple opportunities rather than putting all their hopes on one application. And they should also learn from the unsuccessful applications because it's not all the time when you apply that you succeed. Often the opportunity that you receive is not necessarily the one you were initially expected. As I said, me, for example, I wanted to become a doctor. So I end up with research in economics. So it's not necessarily what you are looking for that you get finally. And to summarize my point, I would just say you cannot benefit from something or an opportunity that you don't apply for or you never apply for. You have just to try again, and then the success will come. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. So basically, it is quite a difficult issue, which is equally challenging. Some time back, Grace shared this concern that sometimes we feel like we are not good enough. Yeah, we are not good enough to do research. We are not good enough to attend to specific issues, particularly within a given field that has a particular way of doing things. So Isaac, looking at this whole issue and the question of self-doubt, whereby some students, they feel like they are actually underqualified or undertrained. So what specific advice would you give to them?
Thank you for that question. So you're asking what advice I'd give to somebody who feels undertrained or under what?
Underqualified.
Okay, so I'd put it quite simply. Just do the most basic thing you can do, which is to fix your behavior and attitude. I assume you would expect a more intelligent answer, but that's all I have. In this sense, a lot of what you'll do at the higher tiers of research and consulting or whatever it is, and like my senior colleagues said, based a lot on your character, the fundamentals of your character and outlook to things. So the reason is this: there is a formula, and the formula is diligence. The formula is curiosity. And the formula is also on, say, what we call soft skills, like what people refer to, like on the bit on mentorship and networking. You'd find that mentorship and networking are basically social activities. But that's when I'm doing my energy consulting work, that's the basis upon which my partnership structuring sits on. When I'm going into like a continental assignment that I'm bidding for, developing a consortium for, those are the basic skills that I use. And that is a skill that everyone can have, regardless of whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or ambivert or whatever it is, whatever variation of character you have. So the focus will be on the things you don't have to pay money to get, the things that you do not have to acquire capital, equipment, or whatever. Just keep it simple. What is my outlook on life? Am I willing to learn? Then based on that, progress slowly. It all happens. There is a formula. Of course, when you reach higher tiers, then we keep insisting then that you should be curious and don't follow the formula. But just that's just like an economic graph where certain things that happen at the base of the graph do not necessarily happen at the top of the graph. There will be a time you'll have increasing gains, then you'll get to a point where there's diminishing returns, for example, right? So that's how I'd put it. Fix the basics. Let's speak in such forums. Join your fellow youth. KEFA could be a very good mentor for you. Me, I'm a bit of I might be a joker, but I could also teach you something small that's useful. Just do the simple things, fix the attitude, outlook, then there's just no limit to it. Once you stay, you build an ecosystem within which people who can teach, people automatically want to teach. Everyone is born with that desire to show something. But the utility of a tool only goes as far as you can use it. Right? That's as far as it goes. So you could have all these ecosystem advantages, but if you don't use them, then you can't access their value. But if you just fix the basics, then you'll be good. Then KEFA, I know our time is fast spent. I'll just quickly highlight whatever I had left on my slide. I think you took away permission, but I'll just read them. Just keep it simple. One, always get your fundamentals right. A compass doesn't tell you the name of the place, but it confirms the direction. Knowledge of the destination is discretionary. It's up to you to find out where you're going to go. Through my journey as a young person, I've learned that even your biggest mentor, it's you who tells them where you want to go. Then they show you the way there. It's almost impossible to just take someone somewhere, but the how is what they teach you. And the example I give for that is the linear equation is the basis of all quadratic equations. Quadratic equations are more sophisticated, but they are all, if I could call them, derivatives or products of the linear equation. So y is equals to mx plus c. That's how you get the quadratic. Then the education is a tool that teaches you how to interact with your capabilities and then how to interact those capabilities with your global environment. Let note the fact that I understand from my own experience, having studied economics, the only thing I saw was to work at the Central Bank of Kenya or the Treasury. That's all I was seeing because I was just like economics. So it's the word economy and I go point that out. But the moment I moved into energy consulting, I was actually, there's a lot of application of not just the content matter, but also the philosophical attitudes you develop as an economist. Every time you move into a situation, when you're going to a budget negotiation with a client, what do you think you use? You use the fact that your teacher taught you that economics is the study of scarcity. So first of all, you expect a situation where there is no adequate resources. So a client will want you to do a continental strategy, but they want to pay you money that cannot teach a classroom. But you'll have to figure a way out. You'll tell them, we have quantitative data collection approaches, we have qualitative data collection approaches. The quantitative ones are expensive. They'll require us to send enumerators to the country of study. But for the qualitative, I can do a stakeholder mapping. I can get their contacts from a person at the ministry and speak to them virtually. You learned about trade-offs. That's how you navigate that. So just make sure that don't approach any situation like you can't solve it. Just go back to what did the philosophy of learning economics teach you, and also the key tenets. There is a lot of applicability that extends across all sectors, and I hope we get an opportunity to discuss that at a later day. My parting word will be that there is this running joke, these memes that young people will love posting, saying that watu mlikuwa mnajifunza French high school, mlikuwa mnajifunza ndio muongee na nani. So just to teach to my own personal experience, it just so happened that today, again, it seems a lot has happened to me today. In the morning, I had a proposal going out, and there are different type of proposal submissions. Others go through email, others go through physical submissions and stamped ones, but then others go through these platforms that have been introduced nowadays, so that clients try to automate everything, so that they do not have to figure out everything. These platforms synthesize the information for them and tell them what they want to know. I was going to submit, dear French ni person, when I was going to submit that proposal, it turned out that the client is a sort of an associate of the not African, but a French development agency. And these submissions are done on the French government portal. And the entire portal was in French. And unfortunately, my browser didn't want to translate it. But it just so happened that I was one of those people that huwa mnacheka wenye tulisoma French high school to find me. So I didn't remember everything, but I had the basics of how to navigate that platform. And I survived my potential. So the essence of that is I was young, I might have been stupid and said those reckless things that we say, hii nafunzwa ndio nifanyie nini. All education is critical. If you don't see its use, you just haven't found the place to use it. So look for the place to use it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Isaac. Yeah, so we have just realized that I'm quite good at missing time, but we could bear with me, for I am also a learner at heart. So at this particular juncture, we are drawing to a close, and we would love to hear from the panelists in less than 30 seconds about one book, paper, or resource they would recommend to anyone interested in understanding research within economics. But just before that, building on Isaac's point about direction, I read somewhere that the way GPS works, that is, I think, the global positioning system, that when you miss your destination, it doesn't just stop, but it repositions itself. Like maybe you are actually at your destination, then you pass that destination, it will simply reposition and tell you that now your destination is some distance behind you or is elsewhere, that kind of thing. So maybe starting with Dr. Socrates, what is that one resource you would recommend?
Yeah, many thanks, Kefa. In very simple words, the tenets, if I may use Isaac's analogy, the tenets will be a good researcher, especially in academia, is by reading good papers. That one I will not want to lie to you. There are high chances if you read papers which are written well, you are likely to become a good writer. And that directs you to reading papers published in top journals in economics. On a daily basis, I at least ensure I read at least one paper on international trade around those areas. But it's very hard to become a good writer and a good researcher if you are not reading works that are published well. Maybe if I may not get a chance to say this, I have a personal website. So for those of us who you maybe want to see some of this information that we've said here, including some of the conferences you should be targeting or you consider, if I'm sure if you Google my name, it will take you to some website there, then you'll see somewhere there some information about economics, some of the people you might want to follow, and also the conferences to check. Otherwise, regularly read papers that have been written well, and those are mostly found in top journals. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Yes, Isaac.
Okay. The only thing that stuck at the top of my head is the biography that was done for Emilio Mwai Kibaki, and it was titled An Economist for Kenya by Ng'ang'a Mbugua. So I read it while I was in primary school, I think class 7. And it's what informed my decision to choose the high school I went to, and ultimately choose a career in economics. So I'm not saying you're already an economist, so that does not apply to you, but then it could inspire you in terms of your future choices. It's a simple book, straightforward, and it's always good to learn. And if anyone, Dr. Majune or Prof. Gashanza, if anyone of you put out a book, I'm reading it just to inform my next step. Sometimes it's easier that way rather than to lock yourself up in a room and also scientifically brainstorm what to do next. Sometimes you need that personal inspiration, and it works equally as well, provided you have the fundamentals. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Isaac. Yes, Julian.
Okay, thank you, Kefa. As the other panelists said, if you want to become a good researcher, you should read a lot. And you should read the journal papers in top journals. And if I had to recommend a single paper or a single book, I don't know if they can have access to it, but I will recommend Poor Economics, a radical retaking of the way to fight global poverty. It's written by Banerjee and Duflo, Nobel Prize 2019. 19. So why am I recommending this book? Because it teaches an important lesson about how to do economics today. We should not assume that we know the answer simply because the theory seems convincing. We need to ask questions, collect evidence, test our assumptions, and let the data inform our conclusion. So that is the new way to think and to do economics. So that's why I think it's a good book to read. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. And to top up what Julian has shared, I would also recommend Thinking Like a Plumber by Esther Duflo. And now finally to you, Prof, what would you recommend?
It's interesting. Kefa, I have no idea of any book or any journal that I would say that if you are an economist or if you want to become an economist, that is what you read. Basically, as I said earlier, that research is about interest, and interest, of course, is about particular areas, not everything. So I think the bottom line, what you require to be a good economist is basically that interest. And when you have the interest, you become very curious. I think that is it Manjune or somebody who's talked about? Become curious and start reading outside the contemporary books in economics. That the classroom economics teaches you that theory and all that, but then you inquire, become inquisitive, and try to find out how this economics is used, around your life. Somebody's talking about Mwai Kibaki. Try to read areas and try to read about people whom you think are successful in economics. Try to search, it's basically becoming curious and trying to read. As you read, it leads you deeper and deeper into very interesting topics or into very different readings. And you learned, probably on maybe a resource that you feel has basically maybe satisfied you, depending on the area of your interest. So I think the bottom line is, are you interested? If you're interested, then read. A culture of reading and reading widely outside the contemporary books that you study in class, trying to find out how that knowledge is applied out there. So that interest is basically what is the bottom line. If you are not interested,
Sorry, Prof, I think you are muted.
Sorry. I was saying that there's no book or any source of reading that you'd say that this is the book to read as an economist or to be an economist. But as I said, the bottom line is, are you interested? If you have interest, then there is that desire to read, and there is that culture to read widely beyond and outside the contemporary textbooks that you run in economics. When you're interested, you become curious and you start learning a little bit more outside just the theories that you run in class. So the bottom line is interest. If you're interested, then that gives you the energy to have a culture to read and inquire more. So basically, I don't talk about any book. It will depend on any papers or any journals. That will depend on your area of interest as you grow up in research. But then, interest is the bottom line. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. So at this juncture, let me welcome the president of the Economic Student Association of Kenya. But before she takes the floor, let us appreciate ourselves for allowing ourselves to have a margin of error in timing of about 15 minutes, which basically is now putting economics to practice, which I believe Dr. would say we are now translating theory to practice. So before that, as the moderator to this particular session, let me, in my own capacity, first thank the panelists, Dr. Socrates Majune, Julian Etonam, Professor Paul Gashansha, and Isaac Chibole for the amazing discussion and the sharing that they have made possible today. Whereas we were not in a position to discuss at length because the issues were quite many and the wisdom was actually oozing at such a fast rate that we almost forgot to articulate every other issue. But that now gives us the opportunity to revisit these remaining issues next time. So at this particular juncture, let us put our hands together for the panelists as we welcome the president to the Economic Student Association of Kenya.